We were a part of making Atlanta getting that name Too Busy to Hate, Too Busy to Love It to Hate. You read me, man? And we have witnessed the early stage of the beginning of the black movement in Atlanta to the end, almost the end, and to now. We have lived through, I think, 6 mayors, maybe or 7. Six. Name the mayor for me, Tim.
Maynard Jackson,
He got it. He got it.
Andrew Young,
It started
Mayor Cassini,
with Maynard Jackson and the
Andrew Young,
and Maynard again.
Yeah, probably Maynard again.
Yeah,
Maynard did twice.
yeah, Maynard again for 1 term. And then Bill Campbell.
right?
And then Shirley Franklin, Christine Reed, and what's her name?
Keisha Bottom.
Yeah, Bala. Yeah,
And then Andre.
and now we have Andre Dixon. That's 8
That's 8. That's 8.
8 years of black leadership in Atlanta. We have witnessed a whole lot of good happy days and good times when Mr. Ward was young. And
Long time ago.
we have witnessed Mabel when she was young, like me, used to handle her thing. When she earned her name, Ava Mabel, because her name was earned Ava Mabel, because if you had a problem and you gave it to her, she was able to take care of it, and she handled it. It didn't lay on the table and bounce around. Mabel took care of it. And we have witnessed the good years
Mrs. Stovall.
equal opportunity at Atlanta.
Mrs. Stovall.
He-
Mrs. Stovall.
I know.
Okay. This is what we introduced, then I think they're gonna come back around and let you talk.
Thank you, Mr. Val.
Okay.
That's my daughter. That's her assignment.
But now, what he didn't say, and I will have to add this even as you come back around to it, is he was like a pioneer in terms of getting black people elected to office, and he had a lot to do with Maynard Jackson being elected. And so he had his finger in politics like this. It's like he couldn't really do a lot without the South Side with him, because he basically controlled not just the South Side, but everything else. And he was smart enough to start a business that dealt with T-shirts and paraphernalia, stuff that you could do in this campaign. So it all made sense that he's a businessman as well.
And he had that newspaper. Tell him what you used to say, Mr. Stovall. He who controls the.
Anyway, in doing those times, many things have happened, and Lord has blessed us to be here now. And we know one thing, the disappearance of those neighborhoods didn't just happen overnight. It happened with, I'm gonna leave this thought, it happened with Mr. Sherman. Began his march again. And this time around, Sherman didn't just march by itself. There's been a lot of Afro-Americans marching with him.
Yeah.
And one thing I learned that when you start talking about history, there's some glory and some pain involved,
Yeah, that's right.
and I hush.
Yeah, so let's go to you, Chris.
Hi everyone, my name is Chris Isidoro. I am an intern here at the Episcopal Jones Center for Racial Healing. I've been here for about 5-6 months now, and what I do here is produce the content that comes out on social media, on YouTube. I also help coordinate the streaming of all programs here at the chapel. I think the last one I did was a program that Dr. Black had that was it was open for everyone, but it was for mostly students. The toxic masculinity.
That's toxic masculinity.
Yes, yes. I've been here for about a year in Atlanta. I come from San Diego. I go to Clark Atlanta University. I'm a rising senior, and that's my passion. It's I'm a freelance filmmaker, so right now I'm working on a project, a documentary with Clark, because they just traveled to Accra, Ghana about a month ago for a leadership conference that they were hosting with with another organization, and I was there on assignment for Clark to record everything and kind of translate that experience for an audience, because there's a lot of students, that went on this leadership conference that never had a passport, never gone overseas, never been to the motherland, and this was my first time going to Ghana or Africa at all, so it was definitely an eye opener, and I really like I like doing nonfiction work. I like being able to tell stories that are real, because there's just so many stories that haven't been heard or are being told, whether or not there are people listening, and I want to be there to amplify those stories that that need to be heard. I'm very happy to be here with the center, and I want to be able to continue working with everyone here at the center that I meet. So thank you for having me.
And Chris is quite a wonderful artist. And when we are doing recordings of your stories, he will be facilitating that and editing and getting it all ready for public consumption. So he's got a big role to play in helping us get this all done. So I think it's Miss Valjean.
I don't know that I want to answer to my name now that I have been called out by once upon a time friend. I am Valjean Williams. I am a native Atlantean, if you want to call it that. I am a Grady baby. Mabel doesn't know me, but I know her. We both shared the same. I had her as a 6th grade teacher, Mrs. Bottom, Keisha's grandmother-in-law. So that's how I know her, besides the fact she lives on Jones Avenue. I lived on Griffin Street, Griffin and Jones Avenue. So we were around the corner. It's a very small world.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be very careful about what you say and who you say, because you don't know who else is there. So as I said before, she doesn't know me, but I know her. Even though older, but still, she was in the neighborhood. And at that time, most of the kids in the neighborhood, we knew everybody. So when Dr. Thomas started talking about disappearing and asked me some questions, I said, yeah, I remember them, but I haven't heard them being called that since probably when I went to high school. Probably was the last time. I knew that they were there, but I'm not really sure that we really paid that much attention to them. I think as I was growing up, I heard more of them, because like 4th Ward and 5th Ward, that was a big thing. Yeah, and it was who went to Gray Street, who went to E.A. Ware, who went to English Avenue. Mabel and I attended English Avenue, and I went when they turned English Avenue from Lula Bell Kingsborough
Mm.
Elementary School to English Avenue Elementary School. So I was there, so some history, as I say, I will remember, and I think I have pretty good recall for someone like me who doesn't remember anything. But I have very good recall, and if I had something to do with it, then it's very easy for me to just pull it up and say, oh yeah, well that was such and such and such. Doesn't have to be necessarily factual, and I'm not gonna tell you, I'm just gonna say, this is what happened, and then you have to do it. So I grew up in the Griffin Street area, and as I say to people now, when I look at the neighborhood, my grandmother lived on Griffin Street, and my parents divorced, and I stayed between two grandmothers, not forced, but I opted. That was to keep the peace, that's what I told myself. So I stayed with my mother's mother, and I stayed with my father's mother, and what I did, I went to English Avenue, I went to E.R. Carter. While at English Avenue, if I decided I wanted to visit my mother's mother, who was closest to E.R. Carter, I just told my grandmother, Grandma, I'm going over to Mother Hattie's house, and I'll see you the next day or whatever. She said, okay. Or if I was at my grandmother, my mother's mother's house, I was at Mother Hattie, I'm going over to grandmother's, and I'll see you 2 or 3 days later. And the interesting part, my grandmother, my Mother Hattie, I'll just use that, we walked from Stafford Street to Asper Street every morning because I was attending English Avenue. My grandparents or my father never transferred me from one school to the other school. I stayed there, so I attended E.R. Carter, well, English Avenue first, coming out of private setting. And I went to E.R. Carter, well, I went to English Avenue, and then after that 3rd grade year, I went to E.R. Carter, and I spent 4th and 5th grade at the E.R. Carter, and then I went back to English Avenue, 6th and 7th grade, and that was the end of that, because by now I'm big enough to do whatever it is I want to do. They knew not, but I could do it, manipulate, and as I said, neither side was concerned about my leaving home and not coming. And the other thing I make a joke about, it never came to my small mind that when I was leaving Griffin Street going to Washington, let's say, or either walking to E.R. Carter, it never dawned upon me, you don't need to go to school today. You need to stay at home. You need to stay at home. And I say that I did because I had a crazy father who was young, but he was crazy. He did not continue to say, well, I don't think you should do that. I don't think his thing was. I don't believe that's something that you need to do. And you can't do it. It was the end of the conversation. And generally, once he said it, he went on out of my grandmother's door at his mama's house or my other grandmother's house, and that was the end of the conversation, and there was nothing else to be discussed. And I was too silly to try, I don't answer unavailables, and I don't know who you are, so. So let me just turn this off. But that's basically my connection with this. And I am a retired teacher of 40 years, and I've taught from 0 to 99, so I know how it is to be a student, and I know how it is to be the teacher, because I've been in both worlds. And since I retired, they pulled me back into teaching last year. I was doing a favor. I'm always trying to help out. And if you ask me, I can say, well, no, I don't think I need to do that. But some people that I know, I won't say they're insistent, I'll just say that they are saying, and I do it to keep the peace, because we are friends.
You didn't tell them about your starring role. What movie you're in?
Well, Georgianne and her daughter did an excellent documentary of what happened to our freshman class at Spelman. And I'm one of those persons that's on there. I'm the person with the big white hat on, who said that my famous words were, I didn't need to be in the line anyway, because if you hit me, I'm really not too sure. We were told not to, and I knew that, but I'm also I also know my reflex is good. And I was not sure that if I were spat upon or hit upon, that I was going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, keep walking. I probably would have, but you can bet your bottom dollar on the return coming back around, I had your number. Something was going to happen to you. I did not know what I would do, and I didn't have any weapons, because I'm not a weapon carrier. But I knew that if you hit me or you spat on me, just as surely as I am fat, black, and ugly, oh yeah. I knew we would have a little thing going on, so I am that person that's in the documentary. Shouldn't say it, but that's just
Yeah.
me. I'm sorry.
Y'all, all you beautiful women.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you.
Great documentary.
So, Mr. Tillman.
Yes, I'm Tillman Ward, lifelong resident of, this community, the United University Community of Vine City. I wasn't a Grady baby in that my great aunt was a doctor. Dr. Hattie Ward Warner.
Mm.
She had her office built in front of Washington High the year Washington High was built.
Mm.
It's in the footprints of where Kentucky Fried Chicken is now. One of the earlier, Harry graduate 1919. In the footprints of where the Ashford Street Martyr Station is, on Lima Street, where I was born. I've just been a witness. I grew up around greatness, as you just heard. Like I could relate to Miss Thomas's area, in somebody's book, to imagine that at Christmas time, you didn't have, your parents didn't have to go in debt to get toys to play with, but just to have a pair of white coveralls and a pair of skates that they said were dangerous.
Hello. Talk about the skates.
They said they were dangerous, and the more dangerous they said they were, the more we had to have some. One of the more popular streets for the skating in Atlanta was Jones Avenue
Hello.
and Teleferro. If you can imagine a car stopping at the intersection and 3, 4, 5 people grab onto your car and expected you to gently take them to the top of the hill, slow up so you could get off and skate back down the hill. What were they thinking? Now, they didn't have OSHA to tell you what was not safe. They said the skates, it was a skate called Flyaway. It had an open wheel that they said a pebble could get in it and it could lock and cause you to trip and fall. So they borrowed them. So we had to find out where could we get some anyway.
Ain't got 'em. Ain't got 'em.
You see, Chris, it never changes.
They had some that would release if you hit something. But we took the rubber bands that they put around the collard greens, or cut a piece of an inner tube off a bicycle to hold our feet and shoot to
Oh my
the
Lord.
skate. But anyway,
And you
We-
made it to adulthood.
we survived it, you know. This is why we're so expressive in the church meeting. I look back and wonder how I got over. But anyway, there's a lot of history that's not known about Jones Avenue.
Yeah.
Where ministers have more than one church. I think it started right there, Springfield.
Right, Reverend O.C. Woods. How do I know this? My grandmother and Reverend O.C. Woods were, but it's the wife, Mrs. Woods too, but he came to our house to eat on Sunday afternoon. And my grandmother went to their house over, and I'm not gonna give it a name, but over off of, where the stadium is now, back over in there where Mount Carmel Baptist Church is. They live not too far from there, so Woods had Springfield and he had Mount Carmel. And I just know these things.
Interesting.
So, Dr. Georgina,
Okay,